You're listening to Hockey Talk on the Rock
All right, stop.
with Laura and Keith.
It's interesting.
So let's back up a second.
He played absolutely out of his mind.
It made no sense to me.
And now, here are your hosts.
Started off, welcome back to Hockey Talk on the Rock, episode 15.
Woohoo!
Amazing through these episodes these days.
Yeah, lots of stuff to talk about this week. So
Lots of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I would have worn my other New Jersey to show you, but you'll see next episode. I don't think it wouldn't be appropriate right now. It would be,
Okay.
I don't think you like it right now.
I think I can guess which one it is. But that's okay. I'll forgive you. I don't know. Anyway, so it's been a very rocky start to the NHL season, to say the least, for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, for sure. I guess we should point out it's currently Friday, January the 22nd, so the Canucks have played 6 games at this point.
Yes, and 1-2.
And 1-2.
And I'm pretty sure they've given up over 5 goals at least 3 times. No, 4 times. Is it 4 or 5? Yeah. Anyway, so, I mean, there's so much to unpack with how bad the team is playing right now. And there's so many layers to it. I guess I'll start off by saying that the one positive, well, there's 2 positives that I took out of last night's game. The first is Bo Horvat, who has been playing amazing despite the rest of the team, which is really frustrating to watch. But the second is that last night, despite having, 3 regular defensemen out of the lineup, the PK was actually better than it's been.
Yeah.
They only gave up the 1 5-on-3 goal, so I thought that was a small victory. And kind of on that note, I said to my dad before the game started, I think tonight's going to be a really rough night. Like, I just felt it. And I was looking at that defense and I thought, okay, yeah, you've got 3 rookies in your lineup. It's probably going to be bad. But it wasn't the rookies who played bad. It was Nate Schmidt giving the puck up right in front of his net. It was Tyler Myers taking 8 million penalties. And so it's like, yeah, it could have been forgivable if they got blown out and, it was Rafferty and Chatfield and those guys making those mistakes. Then you lose Chatfield and you have only 5D for the rest of the game, for the second game in a row. And I don't know, the defense, like, I was happy when they signed Hamonic, and the reason why I was happy was I didn't want this to be their defense going into the season. But I don't know what you do to fix it right now, unless you just let them play through it.
Well, I think it's got to be your latter option there, right? It's got to be time, because you do got to consider that their top 6 when everybody's healthy, like 50% of it's new.
Is new. And you see, that's why I was being forgiving about the PK. I was like, okay, there's guys there, like losing Tanev is big for the PK because he was such a big penalty killer. But, and I'm not, like, again, the fact that, like, Tyler Toffoli and Markstrom and all these players have played really well against the Canucks doesn't actually bug me that much. I'm not like, oh, they should have signed them, because I understand why those moves happened, I guess. Toffoli is the hardest one, and we all know that. And I think everyone knew he was going to score a hat trick his first game against the Canucks. Like, it was such a typical Canuck thing to have happen. But it's like every single one of them has played well against Vancouver. But, up until he got a second goal last night, like, Horvat had as many goals in the last 2 games as Toffoli. So stuff like that was just, very frustrating to watch. And, like, the Myers thing for me as well, we get into that a little bit. The part that was frustrating for me about him was up until last game, I actually thought he'd played way better this season. I thought, Myers has been noticeably better and maybe he'll have a bounce back season. And then last night happened and it was like everything that he'd done last year magnified into one. And then that hit at the end of the game, which I thought he was going to get suspended for. He's not, evidently. So they'll have him for Saturday, and why that's obviously interesting is there's going to be some sort of fight, we know already Saturday, like book it.
Yeah, and I mean Tyler Myers isn't afraid to drop the glove, so he'll probably answer the bell himself.
Oh yeah. I think it'll make in some ways it for a more interesting game. I'm wondering if they'll put Corey Perry in, which would also be interesting.
Yeah, I think as long as it just doesn't get to a point where they're gonna try and take a run at Besser or PD or something like
Yeah,
that.
for sure. And then that kind of gets into the next Canuck topic, I guess, which is Pettersson. And like, I don't want to say anything mean against Pettersson because he's, I think he's going to come out of it. However, I've said that for the last 3 games in a row, being like, yeah, he's going to come out of it. He'll have a big game tonight. And it's just like, he's played for 2 years for the Canucks. And I've never seen him play like this before for this long a time. So I just wonder what's going on with him, if it's a total confidence thing. I know like Austin Matthews was talking about how they implemented the new tracking system into the pucks, and that had actually changed how they like moved on the ice. And he said that he thought that was one of the reasons he'd only scored once before the Winnipeg game. And so my thing was, okay, like if Austin Matthews finds it like that, Pettersson's the type of player that probably would throw something off in his game. But they switched them back to the regular pucks now, and he didn't have a magic switch back. So that was my kind of guess of what was going on, was maybe it was something to do with feeling the puck. But I don't know. I don't know what else to say about Pettersson. He's been so quiet. And then that giveaway on the power play last night, again, it was just like very un-Pettersson-like mistakes.
Do you think he's playing through an injury then at this point?
Well, that is one of the things that I've wondered about, but I don't know. I don't think so. For some reason, I don't think it's that, but it could be.
Right.
I mean, he's not. The other thing that's interesting, I guess, about this season so far is like he's not the only star who's not producing. Like McDavid has a bunch of points, but he got most of those in the game against Vancouver, the second one. I think he's been shut out on the scoreboard 3 nights out of 5. I don't think he has a point yet. It's just very like weird times for scoring right now, but this season is early, so
it's always what I call the silly season. The first, like normally it's October, right? Because I always do like the hockey pool went. I always do one just like that every year. And yeah, the first month of the season, like it goes crazy for some guys where they just pile up. Like some guys, a third of their points through the season comes right then. Like John Carlson last year, for example, had like 20 points coming in halfway through November or something. So it all kind of starts to level off. I don't know if it's going to take longer or be quicker. I would probably think it's going to take longer to level off because the training camps were short and there was no exhibition games. So,
yeah, and like the last couple games have really felt to me like exhibition games. Like the style of play is very exhibition-like. But the problem is like, the Canucks, they might have a window to bounce back. And I say that because even if they lose Saturday against Montreal, so tomorrow, and they go to 2-5, if they win those 3 games against Ottawa, which is a big if because I think Ottawa is playing well, but they should, right? Like realistically speaking, the Canucks should be able to beat Ottawa. And if they did beat them in the 3 straight, it would bring them back to 500, which would be like almost a gift.
Right.
I've
already made a prediction that won't happen. They'll end this at 4-6.
Yeah.
I said they would go 1-2 with Montreal and then take 2 of 3 with Ottawa.
I think that's probably more likely to happen. I'll just say one more thing about the game last night and then I swear I'll get off of it. But the thing that frustrated me, I think, the most about last night was that Jake Allen did not play well. And I think if the Canucks had managed to generate some more chances, they could have stayed in the game. Like, at one point the shots were like 10-30 for Montreal, and the Canucks had 2 goals at that point, and I just think they missed out on that opportunity. And in general, like, I thought Carey Price's performance on Wednesday was very interesting for him against Vancouver as well, and I'm almost guaranteeing he'll have a really good game on Saturday because of that.
Yeah, no, that was a weak game for him. For
Yeah.
Sure. And that, yeah. Sorry, Laura. I think Montreal is going to win tomorrow night.
I am not expecting the Canucks to win. I would be very thankful and happy if they did, but I don't think it's going to happen. So, it's okay. It's okay. I'll take the bright spot that Bo Horvat's playing well, and that Brock Besser appears to have his shot back, which was the other thing that I think has been kind of a silver lining so far to the start of the season. And then just last 2 points on the Canucks. The first one is, I think, Nils Höglander. He's looked okay. I think his first game was by far his best when he scored, but he does have moments during the game where he looks like he can control the play and he is a threat to score, which for the Canucks right now is, it's a positive. I wish they did have another top 6 winger, because then I think their scoring would be so much more spread out throughout their lineup. But it will be interesting just to see how his progression grows throughout the season, because right now they need him in that spot. Yeah, and I mean, now that JT Miller is back, it's a bit better in that department, but we really need to get PD going in order to have 2 lines that go.
Yeah, I mean, I'll backtrack a bit to kind of get caught up with the many things you threw out there, but besides Bo being a power play demon looking awesome on that, they've got that figured out. Should quickly mention, I guess, that Miller was out the first, was it 3 games?
Yeah, and then he flew. Oh no, first 2, because he flew to Calgary in a private jet. So.
But that was for their second one against Calgary, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh yeah, sorry. There was 3. I forgot the second game against Edmonton.
So Miller was out with COVID protocol rules for the first 3, for anyone who is listening or maybe doesn't know. And Ben still hasn't played a game because he tested positive for COVID.
Yeah, and I don't think he'll be available for tomorrow either.
Okay.
If they needed him because of Chatfield, but I think it will probably be Rathbone who goes in.
Division deep already. Well,
Yeah.
we'll find out about these kids now, right?
Yeah, and again, like, for all the jokes, I guess, that I've made about Chatfield being their savior, I actually thought he had a pretty good game that first game against Montreal.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's just, you can't, there's a certain point where you're just gambling, like.
Well, so I mean, they screwed themselves in the long term with past dealings. We won't get into that, but I mean, this summer, ultimately, their biggest thing they really should have just sucked up and done was walk away from Jake, because they know what they have in him, and it's not good.
Jake, like, I don't even know. Do you think he has trade value now?
No, he has none.
Yeah, like,
he's not worth anything, and they should have let him walk. And who cares? And maybe he would have bounced back. But they should have. They're like, Toffoli was a fit, and they needed that. So.
Yeah, and I think too, like with Jake, like if he becomes, anything better than what he is here, say he becomes a second line winger somewhere else, I think at this point you just have to suck that up.
Well, that's the thing, is I only see that happening if he gets to change the scenery situation going for him, right?
Yeah.
I just don't. And if it happens, so what? It's never going to be like, oh, if we only would have kept him, it would have happened for us. Like, it's not. I think they've given him every opportunity on the top 2 lines and everything. It's too bad. It's way too bad.
Yeah, and you gotta think too, like if Podkolzin does come in later this season and gets a spot on the wing, that's gonna just push Virtanen down further too.
Right.
But
I was saying the other day, I was like, well, maybe No, it's not the worst thing. If there was any year to do it, this would be a good year to kind of tank.
Yeah,
Not purposely, but the way it's going, it could go poorly. The goaltendings would average at best, but um, you know, this game they're not making any money, and at this point, it doesn't sound like even if they make the playoffs, they would make playoff money off the gate revenue.
yeah.
So, um, why not lose? It sucks for watching the games and all that, but then get a decent draft pick hopefully,
Get
and
Luke
come
Hughes.
back next year with a new deal for Pedersen, new deal for Hughes, expansion draft over with. Um, you
And
know,
some of the money will come off the books this summer too.
money comes off, Sutter comes off,
Yeah.
Jordy Ben comes off, Edler comes off. Um, I think there might be more, but anyways,
They'll have opportunity, and I do agree. I think that if this year goes south, it's not the end of the world. I think the core that they're building around is still going to do good things. Like I don't think it's like burn everything down and abandon ship. It's just that it's been a very frustrating hockey to watch. And
well, it's kind of like if you want to use a comparison, say it's kind of like how I had to be patient for a number of years with the Flyers, like having great players like Giroux and Voracek, but not enough surrounding them as they develop that core. But now they're at a point where they're the older core, and
yeah,
they've been fortunate enough to draft and develop players good enough to come behind them, like Konechny and Patrick and stuff, to be like the second core. So it might be a bit of a waiting game because obviously you have good pieces in Pedersen and Besser and Hughes. So um, the expectations are just high. Like it's a Vancouver hockey market; it's going to be high. So it,
can't help
it
it, I think.
wouldn't be surprised me if we had to wait another 3, 4, maybe even 5 years before they really start to look like
A
they're in a
contender.
serious window.
Yeah, I agree. I think just like going back to your point on the goaltending, um, I think both goaltenders haven't looked great. I think that in like kind of I guess defense of them a bit. I don't totally think it's their fault. Like last night with Demko, I mean, when you give the team like two straight shorthanded
Oh yeah,
breakaways from the blue line, like
for sure. No, the
yeah.
defense has been more of a problem than the goaltending, without a doubt.
But that being said, I do think he missed an opportunity to kind of take the net early in the season. Because I think if he'd played well last night, they probably would have started him tomorrow. Because again, Holtby hasn't looked great either. So it would be nice if one of the two of them kind of stepped up and said, okay, I'm going to take the net. But, I'm patient with them because, again, I don't think they've been the key problem.
No, and you've got another situation where you've got a new goalie and an inexperienced goalie, right?
Yeah.
So one's going to be trying to take the reins for the first time ever, and the other one's coming into a new situation completely. So there's going to be an adjustment period there, just kind of like the defense. So it's just like the 56 games is the biggest enemy of the Canucks at this point.
Yeah, and all divisional too.
Yeah.
So they're worth more essentially. But yeah, moving on from the Canucks. The other kind of big drama in the NHL right now that's developing is the Pierre-Luc Dubois in Columbus situation. I was just listening, Darren Dreger. He's reporting that he thinks a trade could happen in the next 24 hours. And I'm wondering, like, because of the whole situation, so Pierre-Luc Dubois said he wants out of Columbus. He signed a 2-year deal, but still said, my preference is that you trade me. And John Tortorella benched him for the majority of the game last night. And in defense of John Tortorella, it wasn't just because he doesn't like that he wanted out of the team. It was because he showed no effort in a puck battle in the opposing end. So kind of get it. But, the longer that situation goes on, I think probably the more Columbus is going to lose on the value that they get in return. I don't know. Do you have a guess of where he ends up?
I do. I just want to say I kind of looked into and read a little bit more about the benching thing today. Did you see that article that kind of dissects it a little further?
Yeah.
So I read through that and I watched Like they had some various clips from his 4 minutes he played in the game or whatever, and yeah, like he's obviously coasting. Like it's very clear in pretty much everyone they break down, and I mean they're only breaking down what
One
like
shit.
30 seconds
Yeah.
of his 4 minutes. So, but it's a bad example for your teammates to look at that too, I guess. So I kind of get it, but I think I would predict that they're going to trade with Montreal again, and I think you would see a package going back of Kotkaniemi, probably another
Prospect.
prospect, and then a pick. So
I
probably like
think
a
if they do
Kotkaniemi,
that,
and then a prospect, and then a first or a second, depending on because they're both third overall picks, right?
yeah. You see, I think if Montreal gets away with giving up Kotkaniemi, I think they win that trade hands down.
Yeah,
I'm still not sold on him as a player. Obviously, it depends what other pieces they give up. I know that Columbus asked for Nick Suzuki. I think if that was the deal, Columbus would win the trade hands down.
yeah. I don't think they're gonna do Suzuki, and they said that they want that
They
Romanov.
would let Romanov. Yeah, I saw that.
They said he's a non-starter too, so it's kind of difficult when like the top players the team you're dealing with want to, not willing to. He is a top line center,
Yeah,
and he would make Montreal
a lot better, like than they are
instant
already.
for sure. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. It'll
so
be interesting to see where he ends up. I'm following that one quite closely.
yeah, I mean that's my prediction, and I just don't see the Lane deal. Like there's a lot of chatter about Lane for Dubois.
Yeah,
And like Winnipeg, I'm sure would probably do that. Like, and that's the way I look at it. But I can't see Columbus wanting to do it because they need a centerman back, and that's why I
I
think.
just can't see Patrick Laine playing for John Tortorella, and I would love to see it. I think it would be hilarious, but I mean, I still think if the Jets do trade Laine, they're gonna end up regretting it. I just have this feeling, kind of like the Jake Virtanen situation, except on steroids, that he'll go off wherever he leaves to. And again, maybe Winnipeg needs to just accept that it's not going to be in Winnipeg, and just to get back whatever they can, which will probably be a good return. But I don't see Laine happening either. I think the fit for for Columbus doesn't work because of again the centerman part, and I don't know who Winnipeg could give up because they're pretty thin down the middle to begin with, right?
Yeah, I think the dark horse I'd throw out there would be New Jersey.
New Jersey would be interesting.
Yeah, I think Pavel Zacha is a centerman, right?
Yeah.
So I think because they have Hischier and Hughes, who
Yeah.
are both centermen,
Yeah.
I think they would be able to throw together a package with Zacha and like a first being the centerpiece, and then they probably like I don't know New Jersey's system very well, but I bet they've got some defensive prospects that are pretty intriguing. The way they've been drafting high in the first and second round for the last 5 years.
Yeah. And kind of bringing it to New Jersey, that was one of my points. I've been watching like a ridiculous amount of hockey because I'm working from home and, what else is there to do? But I've caught a couple bits and pieces of New Jersey games, and Jack Hughes looks like a completely different player. He actually makes them somewhat exciting to watch, which is something that I never thought I would say, or at least not this fast. And the other player that I think is kind of on that level of changing around a franchise into being interesting is Krill the Thrill Kaprizov in Minnesota. He has also looked very good, very dangerous, and again, just in terms of looking at teams that you traditionally think of as playing kind of boring styles of hockey, those are two players that have been refreshing to see, and it'll be interesting to watch how they progress throughout the season. So
yeah, it'd be nice for both those markets to try to shake that tag like boring hockey because that's all you really think when you think both of them.
yeah. I have kind of another note here about the Mike Babcock coming in to do some color commentary for NBC.
Okay.
Yeah, so they got rid of Mike Milbury after the last offseason, and they've replaced him with Mike Babcock, which, you know, on the surface seems a bit tone deaf. I'm really interested to see what he's like on TV because he's not a very friendly, you know, like approachable guy in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be boring. Um, like you expect it, but like they tried it with Torts, right? When he was in the hiatus,
Yeah, he wasn't good at it.
and he wasn't good at it. He was very plain. Um, it's I think you have to let their personalities happen organically, and that's what makes them entertaining. But I think you put them in a situation where you're relying on that personality. I think they just kind of freeze up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna be very Sean Monahan of a situation, you know.
I agree. I think it will probably be more boring than than exciting or, you know. I also read the article about Mike Babcock by Pierre LeBrun, which was like his redemption piece or whatever.
Right, defending the things he had done or whatever.
Yeah, just kind of saying, explaining in more detail the Mitch Marner situation and all that stuff, and you know, if he's been enjoying life away from hockey and all that. And I don't know, like there's bits of it that just kind of don't make sense. Like, for example, with the Mitch Marner situation, his version of it is that he wanted to talk to Mitch about work ethic, and he said, okay, tell me how you see it. So rank, who are the hardest working players on the team. And they just had a nice one-on-one meeting about that. And then Tyler Bozak came on into the office afterwards. And again, Babcock was talking to him about work ethic. And he said, okay, well, this is how Mitch sees it. And he said that as soon as he said that to him, he realized that he made a mistake. And he went to Mitch Marner and said, hey, I put you in a bad position. Do you want me to go and tell the whole team about it? Do you want to air it out in front of the team, basically? And Marner said no. And then it got out. So in that way of saying it, it's like saying Tyler Bozak told everyone, right?
Right.
But I don't know if that's true. I mean, again, it just doesn't paint him like it doesn't paint Babcock, I think, in any better of a light than any of the stories that have come back. So if it was like a redemption article, I don't think it worked.
Yeah, I agree. Based on what you've said, I didn't read it, but it doesn't sound like it when it was told in the first place. There was no mention of Bozak from Marner's side of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it's all interesting. Um,
Well, I mean, we do have a trade to discuss.
yeah,
Pretty minor one, I guess, but it was what Colorado sent defenseman Ian Cole to Minnesota for Greg Patron,
yes.
and with a little bit of salary retained in Colorado, Colorado saves $1 million on the cap, and it costs Minnesota $1 million more on the cap.
Yeah. I think that for this one, Minnesota gets the better player. Like, I think Ian Cole's a better player than Greg Pattern.
Me too.
But I think Colorado did it right to open up a roster spot essentially for Bowen Byram. It's my understanding. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ian Cole's too old now to be a difference maker in the playoffs like he used to be.
Sure.
But I still agree that they're getting the better player. I think Colorado wins this one just because I think it was smart in a tight cap time to save $1 million, and they still got a depth defenseman if they need them.
Who needs those?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'd give the win on that one to Colorado because they're probably going to use that $1 million at the deadline to improve for a cup run, and just been driven to Minnesota.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, again, I think Minnesota somewhat improves their defense, I guess. But Colorado was doing it for other reasons, and it makes sense. So
yeah, I mean, $1 million to improve, one of your defenders ain't bad, but
yeah.
I guess we should kind of backtrack and say that the Canucks did sign Travis Hamonic to a 1-year,
Yeah,
$1.25 mil, because I don't think we talked about that on our last episode.
I don't think we did.
He was on the PTO at that point, so hooray for the Canucks. They had 1.26 million bucks available apparently, and they used 1.25
for
Um,
Travis Hamonic.
Travis
And I
Hamonic.
think that, like, you know, in the first few games, Hamonic didn't look great, but he also hasn't played hockey in like a year.
Yeah, he didn't get to do any of the short camp that it was. And like you say, he didn't go to the return to play bubble, so he had a long time off. So it wasn't shocking that he didn't look amazing. I think I don't think he'll be Chris Tanev, but I think by mid-season he'll be noticeably close enough that it won't be so much of a loss anymore.
I agree. Again, I think, yeah, they just need time. That defense needs now to get healthy, and then also time.
And then the other PTO that turned contract was Mike Hoffman in St. Louis. And he came in, I think you called the $4 million, and I predicted 5.
Yeah.
And at 1 year for $4 million. So sweet, good deal for St. Louis. I mean, assuming he came in shape and does a decent job for them, but on paper, I think that's a great move for them.
Yeah, I think that solidifies their top 6. Yeah. I mean, it solidifies their top line, really, right? And it's cheap, it's low risk.
And then they'll get Tarasenko back too, and then they'll be, a real threat. So
yeah, if he doesn't fit in the locker room, which I guess is like the kind of, background information with Hoffman, it doesn't matter, right? It's 1 year.
Yeah.
So
here's a hot take for you. At the deadline this strange year that we're in, I'm predicting that we will see more goalie trades at the deadline than we have seen in, I don't know, a really long time, let's just say. At least a decade.
I kind of agree because of the goalie situations in the league right now. You've got Edmonton, you've got St. Louis, who I think is now regretting trading Jake Allen. You got Pittsburgh, who their goalie situation doesn't look great. Those are 3 just off the top of my head. I think you could be right. I think there'll be some movement with goalies.
Well, you got to think of the deadline. A lot of teams, or maybe not a lot of teams, but some teams will know they're out by then. And because most teams prepared with the 2 goalie system, they'll probably be able to look at it and be like, okay, we're out. We can probably afford to give up our backup, or maybe the starter's on the last year of his deal and we're done with him or whatever. So, even Colorado, I don't think they're going to rely on their 2 goalies again after what happened last year, especially since Frank Hughes
is hurt. Yeah.
So yeah, that's my hot take. The goalie trade market is going to be bigger than it has been in a long time, and it makes sense. And the other hot take thing that I have for you is I totally remember screwing up a previous episode.
Okay.
You had a hot take a while back where you said, what was it? Brock Besser will outscore Tyler Toffoli.
No, it was Jake Virtanen, and that one's not looking good.
Yeah, okay. So you said Jake, okay. Virtanen was going to outscore Toffoli this year. And then I came back and said Toffoli is going to outscore Virtanen for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, you're going against my thing. But I screwed up because I actually meant to say Besser.
Oh, okay.
So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think they're both at 4 goals right now.
I think Toffoli has 5.
Oh, does he? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway,
all against Vancouver,
My hot take wasn't against Virtanen because that was like a given to me. I wanted to correct a past error I made.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, the other big NHL news that just broke in the last couple of days is Washington Capitals COVID violation situation.
Right. So Ilya Samsonov came down with the COVID and didn't know it, and then they in their hotel room, and then at like a sports bar they watched some sports together.
Yep. So Orlov, Samsonov, Ovechkin, and Kuznetsov all hung out kind of illegally, I guess you can call it, without masks or social distancing. And yeah, Samsonov came down with COVID, so now the 4 of them are all on COVID protocol. They won't be dressing for the next 4 games, I think.
Yeah.
And they also got fined or the Washington Capitals got fined $100,000. So that was kind of the big news that broke. At the beginning when it came out, it seemed a bit over the top because they were in their hotel room and that was what came out at that point, right? When they all hang out at the rink without masks on and, all that. But I mean, they did sign off on the rules. They knew it. It's part of the reason why we get to have hockey is because there are these rules in place. So I kind of understand. And yeah, hopefully they recover.
No, I thought it was stiff enough that it was going to be enough to have an impact on both that team and the league, and be like, don't mess this up for us. You're like, it's going to cost you. Now, I mean, the Capitals are likely, and if I was the owner, I'd be going to those four and be like, I pay you a lot of money. You guys are all throwing in 25 grand and paying. Because that's BS. And yeah, I can see it both ways, but I thought it was appropriate.
I agree. Yeah. And kind of on that note too, like Carolina and Dallas. Dallas is playing their first game of the season tonight because of COVID outbreaks. Carolina is the other team that has had a bunch of players test positive and had games canceled. And it's unfortunate because they're both in the same division. So a lot of the games with those teams have been canceled now. So the makeup games for teams in that division are basically going to suck because they're going to have to make up a whole bunch. Which kind of got to the question of what happens if you can't play the full 56 games, right? And it sounds like they're going to go off point percentage like they did last year.
I'll quickly interject on that because the big news this week was the Japanese government came out and said that they don't think they're going to go ahead with the Olympics, even though the IOC says they want to.
Yes, I saw that.
They said that 80% of the Japanese population don't want it.
Yeah,
not doing well with the crisis. So if it does cancel the Olympics, I think the NHL sighs a big relief sigh, and says we can now push playoffs, make up the games, and we don't have to worry about overlapping our NBC contract with the Olympics anymore, right?
Yep.
So that'll be a really interesting and big one to follow over the next couple of weeks because I did see the IOC said we still intend on doing it, but like the way things are going, I would be shocked if they would still want people from every single country around the world to all gather.
There's no way, right?
Yeah, right. And so I think it's going to work out for the NHL's benefit, and I think they'll end up making. Like I read, they've already rescheduled Dallas's missed games for February and May. Like they already know the days.
They do. It's just going to be so condensed, right, for that team, which sucks. I mean, it sucks for them. It's bad luck.
Well, they should have went out and got COVID then, you know?
I know.
Like, 17 of them had COVID.
17, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's I mean, I realize that's the whole training camp, so it's not the roster or whatever, but that's probably like half the training camp.
Yeah, and like I guess the thing for me with the rescheduling of games, again, like right now it's just those two teams, right? But let's just say within that division, a bunch of teams start having those problems. Like, are they gonna say like, okay, this division is gonna play for 2 weeks longer than everyone else after the season ends?
Well, I think that was kind of a smart move they did within these individual divisions. Because, like you're saying, if it's restricted to one division, the points percentage doesn't play as big of a factor because it's points percentage within that division. So it's a little like it doesn't affect the whole league. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then it would just be
playoffs within. It picks off a couple teams, but it's only a couple teams rather than like a large. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, I'm gonna lean towards the Olympics not happening, and they'll be able to not have to really squeeze them so much at the end. Dallas will probably be the most pissed off because they'll be like, "What? Just because we were the first ones to get COVID, we had to compress our schedule. These guys get to play over at the end or whatever." But everything's different. It's all new, right? So it's just been nice to have hockey back.
Oh, I 100% agree with that statement.
And I'll go on a quick Flyers rant if you don't mind.
Oh, that's fine. I was actually going to bring up your Flyers next.
Yeah, my Flyers. They're looking good. They fell apart last night. I was pretty disappointed because they were riding a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Even without Pasternak, Boston's showing that they're still a pretty good team, and Rask had some really good saves. He looked pretty good. I was disappointed in that too because I know you took him in the pool.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Well, I have both goalies there.
I know you did, so I didn't really play at the end. But I mean, I picked two backups and Carey Price basically, so I was an idiot. But anyways, back to the Flyers. Man, I gotta say, what a relief slash like sign of joy it is to see Noah and Patrick come back and play hockey again.
That's been a great story for this season, yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of thought he was done, like taking that many head injuries that young. I wasn't betting on him coming back, so it was awesome to see him A come back and B he's looked pretty good. Playing with Konechny and Hayes, I believe.
Yep.
I think he's playing as a winger. It's looked good. That line's looked good. The power plays look good. JVR is scoring goals like he should have for me last year in my hockey pool. And the way that they've done it, it makes me really happy that they didn't put together a package for Patrick Laine at this point.
Yep.
Because if they were in a situation where Patrick was still out and, like, let's say Oscar Lindblom was still getting treatments and couldn't play hockey,
Yep.
I can see why they were looking to upgrade their wingers. And I saw them in on Hoffman last year and this and that. So, like, wingers and Flyers have been tied together in rumors for a long time, but I'm very happy that they have not dipped into their defense in order to do something because it looks like right now they're pretty well constructed and their defense is looking pretty good too. So the way the injuries are going, it's nice to know that even if like Phil Myers, I think went down, I don't have any concern about who's going to fill in that sixth spot for now, right?
Yeah, no, they've got really good depth, I think, throughout their lineup. Again, for me, I'd say they're in like my conversation of who I think is going to win the cup this year. So I think they're a very good team. But the kind of point, I guess, like taking away a bit from it was the Jake Voracek going off on the reporter.
Oh yeah, right.
That was pretty funny. I know it's made kind of the rounds in the news. But you wonder kind of if players are going to do that more now because it's on Zoom. So it's like less personal with the post game.
Well, I mean, like I listened to a little bit of like I can't remember what I was listening to, but they did some digging. I don't know if you heard about it. But it was like this reporter had like they said this article's from 2017 and then like 2018 and then 2019 and there were like multiple articles over a long period of time. They were like shredding Voracek or like, and this is why we should trade him. This is why he's the worst or blah, blah, you know. And Voracek was like quoted after why he said that comment, being like, after writing those articles, that guy wouldn't even eye contact with me in the locker room. I wanted to tell him off, but he wouldn't even come near me. So this is the first time we've actually interacted where we were kind of face to face. So I finally got to say something. So I thought that was interesting, knowing a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's been nice to see him bounce back. He's been looking confident.
Yeah, he's looked good. That whole team has looked good. Kind of going back to Boston, like before last night, they hadn't scored a 5-on-5 goal.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think they really needed what happened last night to happen. But, you know, screw the Bruins. But
yeah, well, I mean, and the Flyers don't play good in Boston, even without the crowd, apparently. Like they were saying last night that they're like 2-8 in Boston in their last 10.
Oh, really?
And their 2 wins, I think, weren't like they haven't won in regulation there in a really long time. The 2 wins were a shootout or something.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't entirely surprising to me that they lost because it's just one of those things, I guess. But my last note I'll say is Carter Hart has looked good, but not like as good as I thought he was going to be. But it's early.
Yeah.
And Brian Elliott has looked better than what I thought he was going to be. So it's kind of like it balanced out for now.
I feel like there's a lot of goalies right now across the league, like that had good years last year that aren't looking as good as they have this year or have looked really bad. Like Shesterkin in New York is just the top of my head again. Jari in Pittsburgh. Like these young guys. But I mean, I think Carter Hart is better than those two goalies anyway. I'd be more confident in him bouncing back, I guess, than the other two. And again, the defense in front of him is pretty good. So I think as the season goes on, he'll get better, but we'll see. I think on that young goalie note, the best one that I've kind of been paying attention to again is Blackwood in New Jersey. I think he's had a strong start.
I was gonna say Blackwood's kind of looked like the best young goalie out there so far.
Yeah. Have you been surprised in any either a good or bad way by any team this season so far?
No, I couldn't say that because I haven't really even like it's been so few games. I haven't really looked at the standings.
Yeah.
Like I know the Canucks have played 6 games, but they've played more games than anybody at this point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess I can say I'm surprised that Montreal doing as well as they are. Like I picked them to win the division, but like they've looked really good and they've scored the most goals in the league too.
Yeah.
So I didn't think they were going to be that good. And who would be the other one that surprised me at this point? No, I mean I couldn't really put a lot of thought into that. I didn't think Vegas was going to be 4-0 or where they are, but
I mean they've just played like shitty teams though.
Yeah.
I think like it is hard to say. Like I'm more surprised by players because like again Ottawa, like Matt Murray, I didn't think he'd be good this season at all. And in the bits that I've watched of him in Ottawa, he's looked really solid. So I'm happy for him because I think that he needed an opportunity to get out of Pittsburgh. That's one player. And I mean the whole Ottawa team, but I don't think it's really surprising that they're like hanging around in games.
No, I don't think so either.
But they look to me like better than I was anticipating their compete level. I think like again like Edmonton with their lack of scoring has somewhat surprised me. I didn't think they'd be good defensively, but I thought they'd still keep up scoring. I know like I took Draisaitl in the pool and he has taken some points, but he went like 9 games back into last season obviously without scoring a goal. And that somewhat surprises me. But yeah, like nothing has been that out of the ordinary. I think Montreal has looked really good. I think Calgary's also looked good, but part of that is because they played the Canucks. So like, you know, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. That
something we'll have a better idea by then.
Yeah, that St. Louis spanking by Colorado also somewhat surprised me, but also didn't. Because Colorado has so many offensive weapons, and then St. Louis, the goaltending situation, we still don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see once kind of the bigger like juggernauts in each division, I guess, play. We'll kind of be able to tell a bit more of where teams are.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of all I have.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I didn't even bring in line paper today. I decided to go wing it stuff.
Sounds good.
I got by.
Yeah, you got by.
All right. Well, that was a good episode. I feel like we covered a lot of bases and talked a lot of different topics, and I feel like I got out my hockey talk for the week. So
me too. It was good.
Yeah. No, thank you, and we'll be back.
Yeah, sounds good. Peace.